Hi there, my name is Malcolm Wilkinson and welcome to Millennial Meals, a place where we show you how to make some delicious meals and treats right in your own home. So in this episode, I also want to make something that would last a long time. So today, we're going to be making some pork jerky. Let's get cooking. So for equipment, you're going to want a tumbler or marinator. You can use a plastic bag if a tumbler is not available. Just keep in mind that if you use a plastic bag, it's going to take a lot more time than the tumbler machine. A slicer or a knife, large bowl and a small bowl, cutting board, a dehydrator, and then optional if you do not have a dehydrator, an air fryer, because this recipe is still good without the dehydrator. For ingredients, you're going to want a pork tenderloin, soy sauce, Worcestershire sauce, brown sugar, chili garlic sauce, sesame oil, garlic powder, onion powder, black pepper, and then finally, curing salt. So when it comes to the pork that you're going to be using, some people what they do is they use chicken or they might use turkey. I've seen turkey a lot of times. And some people use beef, so that's why you always hear beef jerky. Well, in this case, the pork loin was pretty cheap. Like I got it really good, like good deal at Tom Thumb. And also with this slicer, I can get it into these nice thin slices, and it's almost like a serving size when you think about it. But one of the things that I'm doing here is that I have this semi-thawed out pork loin. And the reason why I have it semi-thawed out, at first I had it frozen, and now I'm letting it kind of like basically at this stage. And the reason being is it's a lot easier to use a slicer to basically cut it all up. So with that said, I'm gonna start slicing up this pork tenderloin. Now that all my pork is sliced up, it's time to make my marinade. So I got all these ingredients right here. This is gonna be all mixed together in one nice little bowl. And I'm gonna marinate them all in this tumbler. This is a carry tumbler, and it's gonna cut down my marinade time to basically fractions of a minute. So normally you might wanna marinate your stuff for 24 hours. Well, this is gonna cut it down to like 30 minutes. With that said, I'm gonna start mixing. So when it comes to your marinade, some people, they will basically put it in a plastic bag and then they'll let it sit in the fridge for however many hours. Well, with this carry marinade tumbler, I can basically reduce that marinade time to like fractions of a minute. So what I'm gonna first do is I'm gonna throw all my meat inside my tumbler. Next step is to pour my marinade or my mix inside the tumbler, like so. Well, let me first get a photo. Now that all my meat is inside the container, now I'm gonna pour in my marinade. So I'm gonna put my lid onto the tumbler. I'm gonna take a picture of the settings so then you can see a better view of what I'm doing. So I have it on the unlock position right now, so I'm gonna turn it to the air position, or at least I'm calling it the air position. And this is where we're gonna put our tube inside. We're gonna turn on our carry tumbler, and then we're gonna suck the air out. All right, now what I can do is I'm gonna turn it to the lock position. I'm gonna gently take this out. I'm gonna put this back in for the tubing at least. Whoops. All right, now that it's nice and sealed, I'm gonna put my tumbler down, like so. All right. Then I am going to add about 15 minutes. Well, I'm gonna add an extra 15 minutes to this. So now what I'm gonna let this do is I'm just gonna let it marinate for about 30 minutes. Then once we get back, this thing will basically had hours worth of marinade done in a nice 30-minute time span. With that said, I'll see you guys in 30 minutes. Now that my pork jerky is done marinating, I'm gonna place them onto these trays of my dehydrator, and then once they're all loaded up, I'm just gonna be playing the waiting game. With that said, I'm gonna start loading up these trays. I just finished layering all the pork jerky in my dehydrator. As you can see, I have basically like a tower. All these layers is filled with pork jerky. There's still a lot left. I didn't have enough layers, so I just gotta do basically 2 dehydrates, which that's fine. By the end of it, I'll be able to have at least one thing to snack on when the next batch is ready. So this is gonna be the hardest part, and that's the waiting. This is gonna take about 5 to 6 hours. With that said, I'm gonna start dehydrating all of this nice pork jerky. So it's been about 7 hours for the pork jerky in that dehydrator. So I cooked it at 155 degrees. You should cook it at 160, but this thing, the top that it can go to is only 155. So the next step is I'm gonna take the pork jerky off. I'm gonna blotch the fat off of it. So I'm gonna like take off the blotches of the fatty juices, because we don't wanna have it like, because what'll happen is once it dries, you'll see like these just fat deposits all over it. And sometimes they, texture-wise, are not fun to eat. With that said, I am going to take the pork jerky off, gonna blotch out the fat. I'm gonna put it back on the trays to cool off, because I'm gonna put it in plastic bags, and I don't want the plastic bags to get all steamy and stuff and possibly re-moisturize them. So that said, I'm gonna start blotching off the fat on this pork jerky. Well, pork jerky. So I just got finished taking off most of the fat off my pork jerky. I let it cool down, then I put it in this bag, and right now I'm letting it air out because I don't want a whole bunch of condensation to form when I put it inside the fridge. Now, at the beginning of this project, I started off with 7 pounds of meat. And, well, after when I threw my first batch of pork on the dehydrator, I got about 26 ounces worth of pork jerky. Now, I have a lot of pork jerky left, but I want to use that for other projects. But one thing I want to mention is that let's say if you didn't have a dehydrator, because the one I had, I mean, it was basically like a huge tower. Well, if you don't have a dehydrator, you may have an air fryer, which I hope you do. So one of the easy ways of cooking this delicious meal is if you get your air fryer, put it at 370 degrees, cook it for about 15 minutes, and you'll have a delicious meal, easy and ready to go. But make sure that those slices are really thin. But with that said, this is how you make some Malaysian style pork jerky. Y'all stay safe, have a good one.